Hey guys, welcome to Up the Coast with Alex and Britt. We are officially on episode 6 of the 2026 NCAA Division I softball season and specifically the ACC season. So we are now kind of 2-ish weeks into ACC play for some teams. Some teams are just now getting into it. Britt, ACC fared pretty well this past weekend.
Yeah, we had a good weekend overall. I don't think we experienced much of a roller coaster except when we were watching some of these games that were so intense and chaotic. But besides that, I think big picture wise, we had Florida State, Virginia Tech, Stanford, and Duke all go undefeated in their series this weekend. I thought, and then Virginia took the series from UNC, Stanford swept Pitt, Duke swept Cal, Georgia Tech and Clemson had a heck of a battle where Clemson took that series. But yeah, we'll get further into those when we dive into it. But RPI's out, DSR's out, so I think we can hit that before we get too far into these games.
Yeah, so the RPI is kind of the standard measure that the selection committee has used the last several years, just when doing national seedings for postseason, all the things, right? So everybody's a little bit more familiar with RPI, but let's first talk DSR and big picture what it is. And I know that you've been a fan of DSR for the last few years now.
Yeah, it's a newish tool that the selection committee can use in addition to RPI when they're making their selections and their seedings postseason, which I think is also important to have more tools because they're going to rank 1 through 32 this year, not just 1 through 16. So DSR was created just for diamond sports, for softball and baseball. And the way it differs from RPI is in a couple of different reasons. A win is always a good thing to have on your resume. You've seen later in seasons where teams will cancel games against lesser opponents because not just because if they lose, they're going to fall, but even if they beat those teams, RPI has proven that if you win, you can still drop an RPI based on who you're playing, which I don't think is ever a good thing to get punished for a win. Another thing that DSR does is if you play a team early in the season and they're a top 5 team when you play them, and then later in the season, they lose their number 1 pitcher and they fall out of the rankings. DSR does not take into consideration how that team does after they play you, just where they are when you compete against them in that game. They also take into consideration things like margin of victory, home and away. So there's a couple different things that DSR does specifically for baseball and softball that RPI doesn't necessarily take into consideration.
I think the biggest, most important piece, in my opinion, is the being penalized, right, for things outside of a team's control. And nobody wants to be penalized when if you play well, you beat a team when they're at their best. Like it should never come back to, bite you in the ass at the end. And I think that it's a great measure. So with the rankings that have come out, again, I think that both are great. And the more you know, the better. And it's going to be huge, all of it, when figuring out this new structure of what postseason is going to look like. But we'll start with RPI. And we had 6 ACC teams in the top 25. We had 9 in the top 50. So with RPI, we had Virginia Tech coming in at 10, Florida State 12, Stanford 15, Virginia was 19, Clemson was 20, and Georgia Tech was 24. Now in the top 50, you had UNC at 35, Louisville at 46, and Duke at 50. So that's standard RPI, the things that we've been used to. Do you want to explain a little bit more where we are with the DSR?
Yeah, in DSR, there's definitely some differences between the two, which is really interesting to get into. With DSR, we have 5 teams in the top 25. Virginia Tech 6, Florida State 13, Virginia 15, Clemson 22, and Stanford at 25. And then from there, we have UNC 26, Louisville 32, Duke 41, Georgia Tech 42, and then NC State at 47. And I think you want to, as history has showed us, if you're in that top 40 of RPI DSR, then that's a good position for you to be in to make postseason. I think the most surprising thing for me is Duke coming in at 50 at RPI. I know they've had a heck of a season right now. They're playing a lot of teams, and I'm just worried that they overscheduled just with the travel and the teams that they're playing. And they went on that 5-game losing streak, including losses to ECU and Boston. So I think that's a little shocking and not a testament to really how good they are, especially offensively. But I love to see the 5 teams in the top, or 6 teams in the top 25 in RPI from the ACC, which is awesome. And Georgia Tech challenging themselves with a hard schedule, and they're coming in that top 25. So I love to see that.
Yeah, I agree though on the overscheduling of Duke. Like typically you would think that it could help you because you're playing a hard schedule, like, the wins and losses, not like to say who cares, but the losses hurt a little bit less. But when you lose the games that maybe on paper you should be winning, we of course know that Boston has really good pitching and things like that. And sometimes teams just lose, right? It's part of it, but yeah, it's tough. And they've really put themselves in a predicament, I think, but we'll see how they continue to fight the next couple of weeks.
You nailed it though, Alex. If you overschedule, you have to take advantage of the games that you're supposed to win. Like you can't overschedule and play all these great teams to make your team better and then drop a midweek to ECU. Just can't do it.
Yep. So let's get into some of the ACC series this past weekend. We'll stay on the Duke topic because we're going to talk about them and Cal first. Duke did travel out west. They have had an absolute gauntlet of travel so far this season, not just of difficulty in teams that they're playing, but also in the manner and fashion in which they're playing them. So Duke went out west for the second time so far this year in about a month and a half, not even. And they did sweep Cal, which we know that it's hard in general right now with where teams are and the information to beat a team 3 times. But I think Duke looked really good. Cassidy Kern in the circle has been pretty legit.
Yeah, I think it's amazing what some rest will do for the arms in the circle, especially Cassidy Kern. They had 3 days off without games before they went out west, and you could tell that there's a fresh Cassidy Kern. Unfortunately, we couldn't watch these games, so I can't give you like a real, what was working for her, what was sharp, what was moving, how was she doing what she was doing, because Cal's rebuilding their stadium, which is awesome. We love that, but it just is a detriment that we can't watch these games. But on paper, she looked awesome. Threw a no-hitter, and then threw that second game like you mentioned. But I think the best part of Duke is their offense right now. I think the biggest surprise for me was Tyrena Jones, the transfer from Purdue. I mean, she's killing it. Layla Lamar is killing it. Of course, Amina Vega and Deanna Jennings, and then Oakland's killing it. I mean, it's just a great offense for Duke.
Yeah, it definitely helps when you have a lighter pitching staff, I would say, when you can score a lot of runs, right? Definitely makes you feel a lot more comfortable, and that's something that Duke has been good at all season. Cassidy Kern did throw both of the first 2 games. My general rhetorical question is Cassidy Kern going to have to throw in every important game for Duke to win? I hope not. I think that there's definite, light when you have Lottie Jaquez in the circle. She did get the ball in game 3. She also won a complete game, which, again, in today's day and age, it's hard to beat a team 3 times, but it's really hard for a pitcher to throw a complete game. Seeing the same hitters 3-4 at bats and them not making adjustments. And I think that is just kind of a testament, of course, to the talent in the circle with Cassidy Kern, Lottie Jaquez, Mallory Wheeler, but then also the pitch calling too. That has to play a huge factor into it with what Coach Young is doing.
Yeah, I think first time a hitter sees a pitcher, advantage is pitcher. Second time's about even. Third time through, the hitter starts to get an advantage. Fourth time through, the hitter has even more advantage. So you got to switch things up with the sequencing and pitch calling for sure. But I know you said this was a rhetorical question. Is Cassidy Kern have to throw every big game for Duke to win? But with the RPI coming out and Duke being at 50 in RPI and 41 in DSR, moving forward, I think every game is a big game now for Duke. Every single series in the ACC is a big game. Every midweek is a big game. So how do they manage that knowing where they're sitting right now?
Yeah, that's a great point and something to consider the next couple of weeks, because it is going to be important. Like you're saying, on paper, they've got to win the games that they're better than, when they're better than their opponents, right? They have to. You can't let any slip. And that's the hard part of really having those big goals of being a host and all the things, making postseason, crazy.
It really is. It really is. But hey, congrats to them. They took care of business, and that's what they need to do. Maybe they start that role now.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into Stanford. Stanford and Pitt played. Pitt had to travel also out west. Better weather, though, out in California than in Pennsylvania. Stanford did sweep another 3-0 weekend for the Cardinals. But I think it was an interesting, on paper, it didn't look easy. Or it did look easy, right? But in the game, it didn't.
Yeah.
And that's been crazy. Yeah.
I think Pitt came out and jumped out to an early lead in a couple of the games, and Stanford had to come back. I think Stanford's starting to settle in a little bit more. I think they're back at home in their stadium without having to go play at different sites and not play because permitting issues. So hopefully they don't have any more of those distractions, and they took care of business. But I think they're still shaky to me on defense. They didn't have a lot of errors on paper, but they're just not making a lot of decisions that are smart. I think the lineup situation that we talked about last week, making the 18 different defensive changes, has settled down a little bit. I think they found a good rotation with the pitchers. Zoe Prystiko did not start a game this weekend, but had 2 wins. She's been used in relief. She threw 3 innings in 2 games and 3.2 in another game. And they've been going kind of with that Alyssa Houston getting the start, getting through the lineup maybe once, halfway through the lineup, then bringing in Brewer, and then Zoe to kind of close it out. And it worked well for them this weekend. So I still think they're trying to find that rotation. Another good thing, Ava Gall is back. She wasn't available for Louisville behind the plate. She's a big piece of that defense and that offense. But I think Stanford still looks a little uneasy. Not what I expected on defense, and hopefully they're figuring out their pitching. But again, they took care of business like they should.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Stanford defense being a little bit shaky at times, but really, I think Stanford capitalized offensively when Pitt's defense was shaky, right? And I think that's a big part of it, kind of like we just said about Duke and taking care of business when on paper you're the better team. If the other team is going to make a mistake, you've got to be able to capitalize, use it to your advantage, and Stanford did do that, although they are still working out some of those kinks themselves. Hopefully better things ahead for Pitt, but Stanford is on the up and up and hoping to see those adjustments continue.
Yeah.
Anything else on the Cardinal?
Freshman Addison Shepard, not the Addison Shepard from Grey's Anatomy, but she is killing it. She has been a huge bright spot for them with an offense that is loaded. She has stood out, and that's hard to do, especially as a freshman. So keep your eye on her as we get further into ACC play. And I think Pitt is definitely taking steps each year and getting much better under the new leadership there.
Yeah. Let's talk about your Tar Heels in Virginia. What a couple of games. That's all I'm going to start with. And I'll just kind of piggyback off of you because holy shit.
The first game went kind of how I thought it would go. I thought Virginia won the first game 7-3. Virginia came out, hit the ball. Their pitching for UNC, not great. Virginia was able to keep the bats quiet for UNC, and they only scored the 3 runs. But games 2 and 3, a doubleheader on Saturday, were just absolutely insane. UNC walks it off in game 2, home run by Emily LeGette. We'll talk about her in a second because how can you not? And then that game 3 was just unbelievable. It was just fun to watch, but there's a lot of runs scored. Virginia having to come back. If you watched it, you were not disappointed. Getting into game 3 was what I really want to focus on. Is Courtney Lane had done really good against UNC in game 1, and she didn't even throw in game 3, which I thought was impressive for Virginia. Even though they gave up a lot of runs, they were able to still get a win without Courtney Lane. Eaton Bigham got beat up. Just about all their pitchers got beat up. I mean, UNC's been doing that to a lot of teams. But what hurt Carolina in that third game was going into the 6th inning, they committed 4 errors in the 7th and 8th inning, which were 6 unearned runs for Virginia, which was the difference. But props to Virginia for putting the ball into play and having that fight and that grit to just not give up. I mean, if you watch so many home runs from a team, it gets demoralizing after a while, I would assume, but not for Virginia.
Yeah, well, and this is a Virginia team that has been battle tested, right? And Coach Hylton has been working so hard on executing in the big moments and being in those situations. One of the things that she said in one of the post games was the goal every game that they are down in the late innings is to get themselves in a situation where the tying run comes to the plate. And if we can just fight pitch by pitch, that's where we need to be mentally, emotionally, right? And then physically, hopefully the results will follow too. But I just like that she's really battle tested this team. And this is a team that does have now more maturity than we've seen in the last couple of years. They've had good talent, but they hadn't really been there, hadn't been, on the big stage in the clutch moments. And now this is a more veteran squad that's getting put to the test.
You mentioned it a couple weeks ago that Virginia's always had the talent, but now they have a depth of talent. And just to go off of that, I think the unsung hero for Virginia is their 9-hole Jaiden Griffith. She had a great weekend. She was 6 for 11, had 2 walks, but she reached on 2 errors in game 3 that kept the momentum going. And she was able to turn that lineup over. Every time they needed to bring the tying run to the plate and the bottom of the lineup was up, Griffith was able to turn that lineup over to Jade Jade Hylton and Bella Cabral and let them do their thing. So I think the 9-hole, to me, Jaiden Griffith was the hero for Virginia.
I love that. And I think you look at any great team in general across the country, and their 1 through 5 hitters typically statistically are, yes, the most consistent, probably your best producers. But 6 through 9, you've got to have somebody that can get a job done in a clutch situation and that's still somewhat consistent. You can't overlook the bottom half of the order. And a lot of the times it's their number getting called in the big moments, and love to see it. So good stuff.
I think it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. UNC's got to have some pitching consistency. They threw 7 different arms in game 3, and I was surprised that Kenneray Dark did not throw until that 3rd game, and she only went a couple of innings before she got pulled. So I think Kenneray Dark only threw 2 innings in the whole series. So her being somebody that I thought would be that consistent number 1 that would take a lot of innings and a lot of pressure off of the staff hasn't. I think that's going to be the one thing that really holds this team back, because they can hit the ball. And if you're playing against UNC, I don't pitch to Sanaa Thompson and I do not pitch to Emily LeGette. I don't care what the score is. I don't care who's on base. I'm not throwing to them. Those are the 2 players that can beat you. And you throw to them and Emily LeGette's going to walk it off. She's already done it 5 times this season, right? That's
insane.
And she had 5 home runs on the weekend. So at some point, I mean, I think it was somebody walked Jocelyn Allo with the bases loaded. Like, at some point, you just have to do it. You have to do it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to score runs on them.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. Love it. And we do have to give a little bit of flowers to UNC too. Like, this is a team that had not really been battle tested much this season. We've talked about kind of the ease of their schedule. This was their first ranked win in the last 4 years. So shout out to them for doing that. I think that's big. And this was, for this season, their largest come from behind win when they did get the win in game 2. So again, like, coulda, woulda, shoulda on the defense late in the ball game to get the series in game 3. I agree, super unfortunate, but definitely some bright spots, I think, for the Tar Heels. And Virginia's good.
Virginia's really good. And I'll tell you what, I've been hard on UNC this whole season, and I appreciate you always trying to give them flowers. But I surprisingly feel better about UNC after this weekend than I did going into the weekend. Even though they dropped the series, they were in position to win that series. Game 1, they made a defensive mistake that really gave game 1 away too. So they could have swept this series. They were right there with it. I think UNC, not being tested beforehand, showed a lot of grit and fight. And maybe if they had that situation before this weekend, it would have been a different outcome. But I do feel a lot better about UNC going against a really good Virginia team.
Totally agree. Well said. Let's get into the other chaos that was an ACC series with Clemson, Georgia Tech. A lot of back and forth there. Again, like, on paper, maybe it doesn't look as exciting, but it was pretty intense.
Yeah, it was a great series. I think we were torn when we were picking this. Like, it's not going to be a sweep, but who's going to take it? I think we both went with Clemson just for the home field advantage. That was the only reason, and that it proved to be that close of a series. Bright spot, Abby Dunning is back, which is awesome. She threw a no-hitter. It was a game 2, a complete game no-hitter, 1-0 ball game, which is the best kind of no-hitter, in my opinion, if you can hit somebody in a 1-0 ball game. She did give up the 2-run home run in game 3, which wasn't great, but she had a no-hitter coming back from injury, which was awesome. I think Sierra Manis still in the circle is their workhorse, but getting Dunning back, maybe we see with Lonnie all the time putting pitchers in different situations. Maybe Abby Dunning doesn't know how to prepare in the bullpen to come into relief. So she's going to learn from this situation. She came in, gave up the home run. So what can she do differently when she's coming into a relief situation to be better prepared and ready for that situation?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Again, another back and forth battle. So game 1, not so much. Clemson walked away with the win 9-4, but games 2 and 3 were really exciting, both 1-run games. And then you mentioned Abby Dunning getting the no-hitter in game 2, the legit 7 innings. That was the first no-hitter for Clemson since 2023. I don't know for sure, but I'm sure it was our girl Valerie and everything crazy that she did in her career, but just a lot of fun. Corey Hicks with the really big walk-off in the 7th. Walk-off home run, really good stuff. So between kind of the defensive performance by Dunning and then the walk-off and all the things, right? Like, just so much fun.
Yeah, it was good to see Corey Hicks show up with some power that Clemson has been lacking. I mean, we're still waiting for Noller and Cintron to really come through for them, but if they're not, somebody else has to step up, and great job for Corey Hicks to do that. For Georgia Tech, Reese Hunter, I tell you what, she's been a cornerstone for this program all 4 years that she's been there, but she's having her best year yet by far. And she continued that this weekend. I think she has put in the work, and you just love to see somebody have that development and after the commitment they've put into a program. So that was great for them. I think in the circle, they're still having a little bit of issues. I think after they get to their number one, Madeline Johnson, once she gets out and they're trying to manage how long they keep her in, they're still putting some pieces together behind her. But I think they're getting there for sure.
Yeah, actually, that's an interesting point that you say that, because they did leave her in a little longer than I would have anticipated. In one of the games, I think she'd gotten, I think it was the last game, bases were loaded. I want to say a couple of walks too, but they left her in there. And I kind of thought that they would have pulled her, prior to maybe that third walk or whatever it was. They left her in, and then they ended up, pulling her. But point is, yeah, I think they're trying to figure out what's too much and what can she work through and just all the things. Our girl, Taylor Pipkin, she came through big in the ACC championship for Clemson last year. She did have a really big swing last night in their game. The nice double to center field. The base running for Clemson was so much fun. I think I had texted you right away, oh my God, did you see that? They were literally 2 steps apart. It was hilarious coming into store. But just really good stuff. And Clemson needs to continue to do those small things right, because this is a team that we've talked about still figuring it out. I do think that they're not the most skilled team that they've been in years past, but I think that if they're gritty and they know how to compete and just find ways, that they're definitely somebody that could, come in and ruin somebody's day.
Yeah, and you can see just how different of a team they are when things are going their way. After that, Pipkins to tie the game up late in the game was awesome. But then, who was it? Jaden Gailey for Georgia Tech comes back and hits the home run the next inning. It was a back and forth game, and you could see Clemson really riding that emotion. If they can keep that consistency, I think that will definitely benefit them.
Yeah. Let's move on to Florida State. They did not have an ACC series this weekend. It was kind of their last weekend of just tournament play. They went to one of the Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina.
Myrtle Beach. They were in the dirty Myrtle, Coastal Carolina. I grew up in the dirty Myrtle. It probably explains a lot.
Hilarious. But Florida State was undefeated as well. A couple of big wins, but also some close games too. The score in some of these games doesn't show the back and forth. It was one inning that was the difference maker, right? And they did beat Coastal Carolina in game 1, 20-8. However, it was 8-8 in the 5th inning. So again, one big inning really was the difference here. 22 hits is what they had in that game, and that was an FSU record. So probably some questions that we have, pitching, what was going on there, 8 runs. And there was another game with 11 runs. That's tough. Now, granted, Coastal Carolina can swing it a little bit, but 8 runs and 11 runs, that's not characteristic for what we're used to.
For sure. I think there's definitely some questions there. I think the biggest one for me is Bella Dimitrievich in the circle. She did not have a good weekend. She gave up quite a few earned runs in her 2 appearances. And we saw her earlier in the season go against UCLA. We know how big their bats are, and she had success there. So I'm not sure what's happening there, but they're going to need her. They're definitely going to need her with Jazzy and McKenna Reed and Ashton Danley. Right now, those are the 4 pitchers. Marley Gaskell's pitched a little bit, but right now, they're going to need to lean on the freshman Dimitrievich quite a bit, and hopefully she can get that stuff figured out. But offensively, holy cow, is Florida State good. Issa Torres,
they can swing
6 in a game. I mean, getting 3 hits in a game is huge. Getting 4 hits, unbelievable. 5, 6, that's just, and she's just coming back from injury. I think it's 2nd game back. Wow.
Yeah. Insane, right? Yeah, that was the most hits in a single game in school history for Torres, just by a single player. And that was the first Division I player since 2017 to record 6 hits in a 7-inning game. Insane. So crazy.
I mean, Katie Harp and Jason, they're doing great too, but Ella Ruggiero, did I say her name right? Alex Ruggiero. Okay. Yeah. She redshirted last year. Her choice. She's a catcher. Michaela's going to be behind the plate. Took her a year off. So she's technically in her freshman year. She's going to be a big piece, I think. She had a great weekend. I think she's just now coming into her own, and she's going to be another name on the lineup card that opposing coaches are going to have to circle, because she's going to make a big impact. You can try and pitch around Torres, Beecham, Hart, but you got the freshman Hind, and now Bella too, really coming into form. This offense is going to be something to have to deal with, especially even if they're pitching struggling, their offense is going to be there.
Agree. And this is a team, like I've called them like some of them silent assassins. Like I think of Ashton Danley, and she doesn't have like really the sexy stuff in the circle. She doesn't have the sexy stuff offensively, but she's pretty consistent. And she's another one, like you mentioned, kind of like those star players. She's kind of a threat too, but she's the quiet one. So kind of just lays low. She'll get outs in the circle. She'll probably get some big swings and some big offensive moments and good experience under her belt. You know, Jazzy Franczyk has been the star in the circle, but McKenna Reed coming through to the last couple of weekends, we've seen her in some big moments. The weekend before, it was the Rucker situation, comes in with bases loaded, gets him out of the jam. This weekend, she got her 8th save, which puts her in a tie now for 6th all-time in Florida State pitching history. So really cool stuff. Love to see the success of some of these kids. We're going to talk about more accomplishments as the weekends go, because a lot of these players are definitely setting some records for their programs.
Yeah, I guess my question to you is, how do you, they're about to start conference play now, Florida State is. They do start off with Syracuse, but how do you feel overall about where Florida State is, big picture, your team?
I think it's pretty standard, honestly. Like, I think early dominance was a little surprising for me. Like in Clearwater, I'm not surprised at their potential, but this is a team, and always have been. We always were like, you got to ride the roller coaster a little bit. There's going to be days where you're like, holy shit, this team is really good. And then there's days where you're like, who are you? You know, and that's just part of it. I do think one of the things that Lonnie and staff do so well is riding that and not allowing the wins to ever feel really big and to, like, you know, celebrate them for too long. But same thing with the losses and even the learning moments. This weekend, there were no losses, but there were a lot of learning moments, and taking them and really working on them, because some of this stuff, to your point, is it's not acceptable. You know, giving up 11 runs to Coastal Carolina on paper is not acceptable with where you want to be, right? If the goal is Oklahoma City, you can't do that. So it's just taking care of business. I'm not worried, but I'm also not surprised either. It is kind of what it is.
That's fair. And you can't forget that they have 9 freshmen, and a lot of those freshmen having to make an impact this year. So they definitely are going to develop more as we move along.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Hokies and what they've been doing. Virginia Tech had some big wins this weekend against Michigan and Penn State in particular. They are on a 14-game win streak, and they have hit 13 home runs in their last 4 games. Insane.
Yeah, I think we've been focusing on how great their pitching's been, and the depth in the circle with Mazzarone and Carrico in the circle and what they've been doing. And just like, yeah, they can score some runs. Offense is still good, but no, they're making us talk about them again because they can hit the ball. They hit 5 home runs in the game against Penn State. Chase Bridget Nemeth out, one of the better pitchers in the country. Castine had 2 home runs, one to tie it, another to take the lead. Zoe Yeager, Jordan Lynch, and Foster all added home runs. So they're like, hey, the offense is like, all right, guys, enough about the pitching. Yeah, we know we got some depth there, but hey, we still drop bombs. Like, we're still the offense that you know from Virginia Tech.
Yep, love it. And then, so I look at Virginia Tech, and they've been, you know, well, one, they have hit a lot of home runs the last few years. But the stars of the show have been in the circle with Emma Lemley and what she did in her career. It was the Emmas, right? Emma Mazzarone, Emma Lemley. But how about Emma Mazzarone hitting too? I thought that was kind of fun. Like, I went back to years past, and like, she's always hit a little bit, but this year already has almost as many at-bats as she did last year. Just hit her 3rd home run this weekend. Like, one of the two-way players that doesn't get talked a lot about, because her opportunities like just really depend on the game, on where the team is and what the team needs. So pretty interesting.
I think it's a funny story that Pete tells, is that Emma Mazzarone was recruited as a hitter. Like, they just wanted her as a hitter. And then one weekend they were out recruiting just to watch her, and she was throwing, and they had her at 70 miles per hour. And they're like, wait, we really need to get you now because she can throw 70 miles per hour and hit. And I think she may have advocated for herself, like, hey, coach, I can hit. I want to hit this year. And it's good to see her getting her opportunities. I love a two-way player.
Yeah, same. So good stuff from them. Christine continues to do well. Big home runs from her, and nothing new there. I mean, this is a team that can swing it. They get themselves in good situations with that, and they always have the threat and the ability to leave the yard.
Yeah, and they're top 10 in DSR and RPI. They're the best team according to those 2 rankings in the ACC, which I am so mad at them for dropping the games to Charlotte and Michigan State. Like, what are we doing here, people? But
I know.
I'm not going to go there anymore. I just want to go, but they're a really good team. They're a really good team, and it's great to see. I want to see them get over the hump this year and get to Oklahoma City.
I'm going to remind you that you said that next week, that you're not going to get upset anymore. because
Yeah,
I
please
don't
do.
believe it.
Well, remind me when I'm watching games
Yeah.
because that's when it gets
I'll just be, is your heart okay? Yeah, like let's control the heart rate. So okay, let's talk about real quick the Wolfpack. Not a whole lot, but on them, but they did well this weekend. They've won 15 straight games. I mean, they're not playing the hardest competition, but winning is hard. And we've seen that, again, with some of the random midweeks that these teams are dropping when on paper they should probably win. But it's good stuff. It's the longest winning streak in program history is 15 straight for NC State. So love what Coach Leftwich is doing over there.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, to be honest with you, just based on the number of transfers they had out of the program that were really good in the circle and offensively. They lost a lot, but they're taking care of business, and that's hey, good for them. Good for the Wolfpack.
Yeah, love to see it. Carly Short has reached base in 25 consecutive games. It's the second longest active streak in the country. So shout out to her. Shout out to the Wolfpack. Doing good, doing well. Louisville went 3-1. They won against Ball State in Illinois. They did also lose a game to Ball State as well in the weekend. Boston College went 3-3. You got anything on either of those?
I just was disappointed to see Louisville lose that first game to Ball State after coming off of the series one against Stanford. I felt like they could have really taken that momentum into this weekend, but they took care of business 3 of the other games. So Louisville, and you look at their RPI and their DSR rankings, they're 32 DSR, which is a great spot to be, but RPI 46. So they've got some work to do. That game, a sweep of Ball State certainly would have helped. Louisville, looking to get back in the NCAA tournament, needs to take care of business after what we've seen that they can do. Like, they
absolutely
proved to us how good they can be by taking the series from Stanford. So now our expectations are up, and I expect them to be in the postseason if they take care of business.
Agree. So a couple of shout outs. We had already mentioned too, Coach Smith and UNC getting their first ranked win. Issa Torres back in action for Florida State. Love to see it. But Britt, you had a special one for the UNC SID.
Yeah, Alex Funderburk at UNC. I think he was at UCF before then, right? Alex, you know him pretty well. I've only talked to him from calling a game there once last year. Seems like an awesome guy. But I saw on social media post-game press conference for UNC softball, and that is the first time I can ever remember that happening. I'm sure at Florida State it happens as it should be. Y'all are national champions, go to the World Series. But Alex said he made a concerted effort to build relationships with the student media on campus to get them invested into covering the sport of softball at UNC, which I think is really important. And I wish more SIDs would do it, especially the student media on campus and having them invested in your program. And they've done a great job. They have podcasts out every week with Coach Smith and another player. So bringing that attention to this program and then them performing on the field is awesome. So great job, Alex. Thank you. That's a huge SID move, and all the stuff that SIDs do that aren't even recognized, to put that on top of it, huge. Thank you.
She's here for it. So let's talk about our standout performances. I had to go with Issa Torres, with her being back the last couple of games. Okay, her numbers are absolutely stupid. 15 for 18. 8 RBI, amazing too, but 15 for 18. Are you effing kidding me? Who does that?
Free throws. Like, if you make 15 out of 18 free throws, that's good. 15 out of 18 at bat. Come on.
The math is mathing. Well, really, it's not, because it's not normal.
No.
However, I like it. I like your analogy too. That's awesome.
My son got a basketball goal, and we've been hooping it up a lot lately, so that's where it comes from. Mine, I'm going to go with my Tar Heel, Emily LeGette. I mean, she is legit. Emily LeGette is what I call her. She was 8 for 13. That's not 15 for 18, but she had 5 home runs and 15 RBIs, 0 strikeouts, and 4 walks, and a walk-off in there. One of those home runs was a big walk-off against Virginia to get their first top 25 win in Megan Smith's tenure there, and she just carries herself like a baller too. Like, she knows how good she is. And remember, she transferred from Virginia Tech, so she's getting her time to shine, and she's taking full advantage of it. Loved watching her this weekend. Love that she's a Tar Heel now. But I wouldn't pitch to her.
Yeah. We'll see who's crazy enough too.
Right.
So, all right. So national storylines. Let's talk a little bit about injuries real quick, just across the country, not just ACC.
You got Carlin Pickens, who went down with what they're calling a shoulder strain day-to-day, did not pitch this past weekend in their conference series against LSU. They come here to Starkville next weekend, so we'll see if we see her. Ava Brown, a couple weeks ago, went down with Florida, said that the injury wasn't as bad as she thought, but she may come back towards the end of the season. We'll see. Then Nelly McEnroe-Morenas from OU tore her ACL, so she's obviously out for the year. Alex, you know all about that. I'm sure that hurts you a bit, but we're getting that time of year, right? That injuries are going to happen. We haven't seen anything major in the ACC. I mean, Dunning went out for a little bit. Issa went out for a little bit, but those can happen. I think it's just a reminder that anything can happen any day to any of these players. So it's so important to have that depth and putting players into situations because you never know what's going to happen. And I hope all these players that are dealing with injuries, take care of their mentals too through the process.
Yeah. What she said. Yep. You said it perfectly. Lots of crazy stuff. The wear and tear on the bodies are real. You just hope that they come back at some point and that they come back stronger and well. So, all right. Favorite portion of the show?
For some BS?
Let's do it.
No BS with AP. All right. See, these are some things we either made up in our own heads or saw on the interweb that we're going to address. So, Alex, BS or no BS? If you can't play at home, you should not be able to host an ACC series. BS or no BS?
That one's tough. I feel like I'm going to say no BS, but there's going to be a caveat, of course.
Okay.
So I do think that, I mean, if you can't host, why even have anybody come out to you, right? Like, what does that make sense? Now, revenue, I understand, like ticket sales, things like that. Like, I understand the benefit, merch, right? All the things that these programs specifically can benefit from. So that's where my caveat is. And like, hey, I don't think you should be able to host if like you can't play at your actual home field. Yeah. But I also understand like it hurts teams. So I'm trying to be realistic. I do think streaming should be mandatory. I'm sorry. With where we are today, I mean, our games didn't all get streamed, which can you imagine if they were? But I think that with where the sport is, I do think streaming should be required. But I also like watching softball. So
I've got a couple of responses.
I got no BS.
The whole streaming thing, absolutely. Don't tell me it's a financial equipment kind of decision. It's a give a shit decision. If you gave a shit, you will find a camera to set up behind home plate. Give me one camera. That's fine. Give me just one. If that's all you can do, if you cared enough, you can make that happen. And it's not the coaches that get to make these decisions before anybody gets on me. It's an administration that cares enough. Give a shit? Yes. And then back to should you be able to host the ACC series if you're not playing at home? I think this came from my own head because I was mad I couldn't watch Duke and Cal. But I think about what Stanford did. They knew they were building a new stadium, so they found a way to play on campus in their football stadium. Like, before you decide to tear down your stadium, have a plan. Let's have a plan. And I think you can find a way to do it on campus. And I just hate it, but it is what it is. But I like this. I'm glad you brought up the streaming.
Yeah.
All right. The next one. BS or no BS, Alex? The double first base is causing more harm than good.
I'm going to go BS on this one. I think that there is a lack of understanding around the rules and kind of the regulations around how the safety base or the double first base is used. I also think that starts at a youth level. I don't know about you. I am pretty sure I played majority of my travel ball days, both in the state of Florida and across the country, with a safety base because a lot of fields have them. So I think that there's not enough implementation on returning to the correct base and how you use the safety base at a younger age, which is why now in college, some of these players, coaches, fans have shell shock.
So where do you place the blame then? Is it on the coaches not educating their players?
I think now, yes, it is a little bit on the coaches and also on the athletes, right? You've got to take responsibility for knowing what to do. Mm-hmm. A lot of it, unfortunately, is going to be on first base coaches. I just know, like, not that I know from having that specific experience, but like Major League Baseball, being a base coach is one of the most serious jobs that you have, right? You've got pickoff duty, you've got other duties in general, right? It is on the athlete primarily, but a lot of it is also on the first base coach to ensure that when they hit the base safely, they do everything after that properly. Mm-hmm. Again, responsibility on the athlete, but also on the coaches, specifically first base coaches, unfortunately. And I also am going to place some blame from a youth perspective, again, on coaches, players, and umpires, because I think education could start early to help this new rule and new transition.
We could really get into the youth sports thing, but I have a lot to say about teaching the game the right way. I know girls come into college, don't know how substitutions work, don't know why they're not playing because they pinch ran and came out of the game. They don't know they're burnt, things like that. I think we're kind of shortfall just from playing all these showcases. And I also think umpires have gotten some of these double first base calls wrong, but I think it's definitely a learning curve that I kind of expected to happen, which is unfortunate. All right, last one. BS or no BS, the ACC is the most evenly talented it has ever been.
No BS. I think that is absolutely true. I think across the board, it is hard to sweep. It is tough to play these teams. It's exciting to watch. I'm not saying this is the best the ACC teams, like say Virginia Tech, Florida State. I'm not saying they have their best teams ever. I'm saying across the board, this is the best the ACC has ever been.
Yeah, I agree. I think we saw Florida State at the top for so long. Virginia Tech made a World Series in there. And then the addition of Duke and Clemson kind of elevated. But then you're seeing Virginia, UNC, that middle part continue to get better. And then even at the bottom, we're seeing that bottom part continue to get better. So I think it's a great testament to the investment of the schools, the coaches, and everything in sports softball and the ACC.
Couldn't agree more. So we've got some exciting stuff to watch for this week. Specifically this week, the midweeks are going to be fun. You've got on Tuesday, Duke at South Carolina. You've got Charlotte at NC State. Those are going to be fun games. Tough midweeks. The ACC really needs to take care of business there. Then
Duke coming from Cal, going straight to Columbia. The road dogs this year. Road dog. South Carolina's, they got swept by Texas this past weekend, so they're not happy. They're going to want to take care of business. Duke has to win games. We saw where they are in DSR and RPI, so this is a big one for them. Real big.
Yep. Some big ACC series as well. You've got Georgia Tech at UVA.
Who you got?
Going to be another fun one.
Who you got?
Oh, I'm going to go UVA. I'm going to go not a sweep. What about you?
I agree. I'm going to go UVA takes 2 of 3. I really liked what I saw Georgia Tech do
Me too.
in game 3 against Clemson. It's just going to come down to how Johnson does in the circle.
Me too. And then we got Louisville at Clemson. What do you got there?
Clemson takes 2. Louisville showed me too much against Stanford for me to think they can get swept.
Yep, I completely agree. UNC at Cal.
This is tough. UNC takes 2.
Okay, I'm going to go UNC sweep.
Okay.
I think Cal, obviously, they're in a rebuilding year. It's tough. I think that they're going to get a sweep. We'll see.
I'm leaning sweep, but I think travel, I don't know if UNC has gotten this format down right yet.
I hear you. Syracuse at Florida State.
Why are you looking at me like that? Why? Because it took me so long to answer. I'm going Florida State sweep, but Florida State always likes to drop a game this time of year that they're not supposed to drop. So that gave me pause for a second, but Florida State sweep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. Virginia Tech at Duke. You want me to go first? This is gonna be a fun one.
Yes, go.
Ooh, all right. I'm gonna go. Dude, I should have thought about it a little harder before. I am gonna go.
Yeah, this is the mark.
It's gonna depend on how good Cassidy Curd can be.
How good she gonna be, Alex?
I'm gonna. On paper, it's gonna say Virginia Tech wins the series.
Well, I'm asking you. You're not paper.
I know. I'm not paper, and that's why I think I'm gonna go against the grain here. I am gonna go, especially because it's at home too. I am gonna go Duke wins the series, and I think Cassidy Curd will split. I think she'll throw 2 of the 3 games. I think she'll win one, and I think she'll lose one, just because Virginia Tech is that good, not because of Curd. I think because of VT. So I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm going to go Duke wins the series, but I'm going to go Virginia Tech takes 1, and it's going to be a game Curd pitches.
I don't think I've seen your brain work that hard in a long time.
Hey. So that was hard. It is hard because on paper, Virginia Tech is better, but I think that being home, I think that Curd is gritty, and I think that Duke can freaking hit too.
That's true.
Just like Virginia Tech. All right, what do you got?
I'm going to take the easy way out. I'm going to take Virginia Tech, but I think Duke does pull one out, and I think it may even be a convincing win. Like, if everything's rolling, I think they can beat them, but I think this is the marquee matchup, and I don't think anybody can really predict with confidence what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Pitt at NC State. You want to go or you want me to go?
Go for it.
All right, I'm going to say NC State wins 2. So I'm going to say that the hot streak continues for the Wolfpack, but I think that Pitt's been playing really well, so I do think they're going to win 1 game. I also think they're going to make at least 1 or 2 others close.
I think Pitt's going to clean up some defensive miscues, and I think Pitt's going to take 2 of 3.
Okay.
We need to write these down.
I know. We'll have to go back and watch next week to see who was right. Yeah. Notre Dame at Stanford.
Stanford is going to sweep.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I agree. All right. Oh, and then we got, Boston College games at South Carolina.
That's going to be tough for Boston College. That's going to be tough. But I'm glad they're playing a 3-game series in middle conference play, because you've got to know how to play 3 games.
Agree.
All right.
We'll check back next week and see who made it out alive, Brit or I.
All right.
As always, let us know if you've got any questions, things that you want to know or dive deeper into, and thanks for watching.
Bye.